Okay, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where in the world you're tuning in from. It's a pleasure to have you on. This is another edition of Ink and Insights. It's an online gathering of existing and emerging leaders in the literary landscape who explore various issues affecting their field of expertise. I am the convener of this forum. I'm Casey Garvey. I am Jamaican. I am a poet, and I'm also the founder of a nonprofit organization called Jaiku that is dedicated exclusively to empowering the local and regional poetry community to operate at higher levels of efficiency, sustainability, and professionalism. So thank you so much for coming on. We have a suite right, of topics that we have already explored throughout the year since we launched. We have looked at copyright and AI. We have looked at how to negotiate contracts as a writer. We have looked at a range of topics. And today, our topic is called Black to School. And it's looking at the importance of diversity in school curriculum. So we have today Katie Webb from the IAF. She's a coordinator of both the Caribbean and Latin American chapters of the IAF, the International Authors Forum. And I'm very glad to see members of both chapters joining us today. We also have Maria Fernanda Mendoza, who is a consultant to the IAF. And we also have a very special guest, a first timer. Her name is Lavinia Stennett, and she is the founder of a very active and very successful NGO in the UK called the Black Curriculum. So let me get into more of what we're going to be talking about. Just to give a brief overview, all three presenters are going to be looking at different elements of diversity in school curriculum. And we're going to ask that or undermining diversity. And there are a range of factors. We do understand that I think it's almost a given, really, that diversity plays an important role in shaping the narratives and the perspectives that students have of their world that they will navigate upon graduation, as well as of themselves. And diversity can take a range of elements, right? You have diversity in terms of age, in terms of socioeconomic status, in terms of language, in terms of ethnicity, customs, and so on. And so it's really important for students to be able to have that kind of diversity in the books that they're reading and the books that they have access to, as well as the books that are given a level of dignity in their eyes, so that when they are working with persons from different backgrounds, when they have to think outside the box and they have to take into consideration the perspectives of other persons who are different from them, they will be able to know how to do that well and how to do that efficiently and in a way that evokes value and respect for other cultures and other persons of different backgrounds. So we all understand the importance of it, but we're going to take a deep dive into what are the factors that play a role in this. So I'm going to invite Katie Webb from the IAF to come on and talk about how even things like copyright frameworks can create economic barriers to the increased diversity of authors of the textbooks that we all want our children and our students to read. All right, handing over to you, Katie.
Thank you very much, Casey. And I'm just going to share my presentation straight away. And to get going. So, good evening or morning or afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're really happy that we have both Spanish speaking and English speaking participants. We apologize that we haven't arranged interpretation this time, but this is something we're working towards for all of our events, so that hopefully this network can be truly united between the Caribbean and Latin America and really reflect all its diversity. So diversity in school curricula, and I'm going to cover today how does copyright fit in. My name is Katie Webb, and I represent the International Authors Forum, specifically the Latin America and Caribbean Network, together with Maria Fernanda Mendoza, who is also presenting today. It's a pleasure to be collaborating with her, of course, and with Casey Garvey once again, and for the first time with Lavinia Stenek. Today, for our theme about the importance of diversity in the school curriculum, I'm going to talk to you about how copyright fits in, and specifically, I'm going to address why does copyright matter for diversity, and why does diversity matter for copyright? How does a strong and effective copyright framework promote diversity in the curriculum? And what are the threats to this system functioning effectively? And what are the unintended consequences of such threats? To illustrate this, I'm going to talk you through a real-life case study of what has happened with regard to copyright exceptions in Canada in the field of education over the last decade. So, number one, why does copyright matter for diversity, and why does diversity matter for copyright? Well, copyright is the set of legal rights which protects an author's expression in a tangible form, such as a piece of writing or a painting or a textbook, let's say. As long as it is original, i.e. not copied, and it is fixed in a tangible form, for example, it is written down, it belongs to the author legally as their intellectual property, and they have control over it, whether to sell it or give it away for free, and whether any changes can be made. This gives them a product with a marketable value and enables them to make a living, thus sustaining them professionally, giving them the time to continue working as an author, because by earning money from their copyright, they don't have to spend time earning money by other means, and so their creative work can flourish. Having this system in place enables diversity, that is, giving the maximum number of people the opportunity to become working independent authors without bias to them coming from a wealthy background, for example, or being part of a certain group, or having a certain skin color or nationality. Because everybody who is an author has their rights enshrined in law, and therefore has the possibility to market and sell their work and live by that work. So copyright gives this possibility for us as readers, consumers, art enthusiasts, students, for example, to enjoy diverse works by diverse authors. And I think the real needs for this diversity, already partly explained by Casey, are going to be very well illustrated by Fernanda and Lavinia through their real-life examples in their presentation. And in turn, this diversity enables a market to thrive based on copyright, which was invented in order to support authors, their creativity, creative expression, intellectual advancement, knowledge, and all such ingredients that make up a thriving culture and upon which a thriving education system depends. Copyright should operate at the local level, so these possibilities are equal for all languages, countries, colours, cultures, education systems, to be sustained, self-sufficient, and therefore to continue to exist, to have a place in the world now, reflecting and representing each tradition, history, expression, heritage, and stories, which are essential ingredients for a peaceful and equal world. And so, how does a strong and effective copyright framework promote diversity in the curriculum? Well, copyright in education is a specialist and important area, and it works slightly differently. Education is considered important to a country's health and wealth. It would be very expensive, more expensive the less wealthy a country is, to demand full payment for every use of educational material by a student. And it wouldn't be very fair or give countries other than rich ones the chance to educate their populations. However, if there was no means of payment for educational material, such as that found in school curricula, no such material would be able to be produced. And diversity is threatened because schools, for example, would have to rely on old or out-of-date material, or, for example, on the educational material of other wealthier countries who can support publishing and education, but constraining them to use material that does not represent their own identity. Lavinia and Fernanda again will talk about why this is a bad thing. The solution in the context of copyright is licensing, whereby instead of having to pay for each copy of educational material, educational institutions like schools, often supported by the state, pay a license fee, enabling them to use educational materials freely, but at a lower cost. But the license fees go to the authors and publishers of educational material, enabling them to sustain their work. This is built into copyright law. These systems are put in place under what are called copyright limitations and exceptions. So they enable the diversity which copyright fosters and enable access to that diversity in a flexible and affordable way according to need. They strike the balance between accessible, affordable use and payment, which is the objective of copyright. And so what are the threats to this system functioning effectively? And what are the unintended consequences of such threats? Well, a case study of copyright exceptions in Canada may help us to understand. So as I explained, in copyright, the balance between access to copyright works, i.e. the work of authors, and fair payment for use of that work is essential for copyright to work and to support a market that enables the diverse production and dissemination of that work. Where, in a special case like education, the need for access to authors' works is very great, and often the budget to pay for those works is very small, licensing can accommodate those needs. However, the authors of educational works still need to be able to make a living. In many countries, governments and organizations supporting users, such as educational institutions, still feel that they cannot afford educational materials. Therefore, they lobby for copyright laws to expand or extend these exceptional circumstances to copyright in a way that throws the balance out. And this is what happened in Canada with the introduction of the Copyright Modernization Act in 2011. This is what the new guidelines said for using educational materials protected by copyright under that new reform bill. It said that colleges and universities in Canada could claim for free up to 10% of a published work, entire chapters, entire stories, entire poems, and entire articles to use in educational course packs. And all of this was traditional license territory, meaning that before this reform came in, instead of that work being for free, it was covered under a license which enabled 7.5 million Canadian dollars in income to flow to writers. So as you can see, that this slide illustrates the situation before and after. So before, under the fair dealing, as it is called, copyright exception, where there is a provision made for education so that that educational works can be more accessible. There was the fair dealing, the license income of 7.5 million Canadian dollars to writers. And that was used to purchase the books. After the new fair dealing policies, that income was cut out completely for authors. So writers in the educational field effectively lost a major source of income. And we can see an example of the impact on diversity to the local market, which was that a local publishing press, as this report explains, Oxford University Press Canada, had to shut down completely, reducing the ability of the local market to produce educational materials appropriate to local needs and giving work to local authors. And for these last 4 slides, I'd like to acknowledge John Deegan, Chair of the International Authors Forum Steering Committee and Executive Director of the Writers' Union of Canada, for the information given. And this presentation he gave back in 2014, so 10 years ago. So in preparing for this presentation today, I asked John for an update about the situation and how things stand and how the situation is for authors in the educational field 10 years later, following this copyright reform, which expanded the educational exception to copyright. And I'd like to read out what he told me in full, although I've only used a short quote for the slide. He said that sadly, nothing has changed here, nor will in the near future. The thing about any new exception to copyright, once it is put in place, is that it is very nearly impossible to remove, because those benefiting from the exception, in this case schools, colleges and universities, claim it as a natural right. The whole construct of copyright as a balance between rights holder and user is flawed, because it invites proposals for more and more exceptions in order to satisfy the users. Therefore, the original exclusive rights awarded to creators are endlessly under attack for the sake of so-called user rights. There is no access or use demand that cannot be met with reasonable and affordable licensing. The call for new exceptions is almost always about avoiding licensing, lowering the cost of use, or removing cost altogether. Exceptions are anti-market and they calcify anti-market conditions. Now that Canada's universities, colleges and schools have not been paying for their copying for over a decade, they have adjusted their budgeting so that reintroducing these costs will look like new spending they suddenly can't afford. So the drive to re-establish reasonable market conditions for cultural creators is easily positioned as an attack on educational budgets. So in conclusion, I've tried to provide you with an explanation of why copyright matters for diversity in the school curriculum and why diversity matters for copyright to work well. Essentially arguing that without the market-based balanced solution that copyright facilitates, it is difficult to achieve diversity in the curriculum, because in order to achieve that diversity, one needs to sustain diverse authors of that curriculum by paying them for their work. Licensing should enable this to happen without exploiting anybody and accommodating different budgets and educational needs. I'll be fascinated by the following presentations from Maria Fernanda and Lavinia, which will build on this picture and enable us to have a rich, challenging and informative discussion at the end about how to achieve diversity on the ground, considering the real needs and situations of diverse countries and communities, and whether we think copyright or other tools available can help to facilitate the diversity we all want. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much, Katie, for that very informative presentation. And I realize I need to apologize because I didn't read out your bio before you presented. So I'm sure everybody knows just how brilliant you are. I'm so sorry that I neglected to read out your bio before your presentation.
Don't worry.
let me try to not make the same mistake with Fernanda. Okay, so for those, although most of us know her by now, but for those of us who are new, Maria Fernanda Mendoza is a specialist in copyright. She managed the Centro Mexicano de Protección y Fomento de los Derechos de Autor. That would be what the Mexican Center for the Protection and Establishment of Authors' Rights for 10 years. And she contributed to the creation of collective management entities in Panama and Costa Rica. In the academic field, she has more than 20 years of teaching both in Mexico and abroad. She collaborated in the Spanish edition of Lynette Owen's Comprar y Vender Derechos, that's buying and selling rights, published by Fondo de Cultura Económica. She's currently a consultant for the International Authors Forum for Mexico and Latin America. So please help me to welcome Maria Fernanda Mendoza, who will be taking us through some of the political elements of diversity in school curricula.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm going to talk about the situation in Mexico, because the situation of the academics books in Mexico is different to the rest of Latin America, and I think so that maybe it's different to the rest of the world. Let me put a presentation that I prepare. I need access.
Fernanda, can you share? I think I need to make you a co-host.
Okay. Here it is. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, just probably go to full screen for the slideshow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in the case of Mexico, since 1959, the National Commission for the Free Textbooks, that called CONALITEC, was created by decree, which is the government entity responsible for the creation, editing, publishing, printing, and distribution of free textbooks for primary education that are based on the official programs. This initiative was based on the constitutional mandate to provide Mexicans with an obligatory and free education, and with the idea of, first, to create unity, a feeling of belonging, and national identity. It must be remembered that Mexico came from a civil revolution, and it was necessary to create cohesion among the population, and to put an end to the distinctions between the North and the South people. Remember, Mexico is a big country. Second, it was also important to put an end to the monopoly of the Spanish and the American publishers, and to the importing businessmen who made access to books more expensive and difficult, in addition to the fact that the commercial publishing houses did not ensure that their books reached all the regions of the Mexican territory. Third, free education was a popular demand. It was necessary to close the gap between poor children, usually from rural areas, and children from cities. At least the educational material will be the same for all the students by grades and subjects, and their teachers, in addition, must use them in classes and not request commercial text excluded from the official catalog of the Secretary of Public Education under a penalty. They have to use these books, only these books for the elementary education. Even to ensure the non-interference of foreign hands, it was ordered that only Mexicans, in that time, only Mexican authors could participate in the production, that means in the writing, of the textbooks, as a measure to promote the training of national creators and save the country from the Spanish intellectual colonialism. Today, CONALITEG produces more than 160 millions of books each year to deliver about 24 million children and young people from kindergarten, prefers, that are 3 grades, then primary, secondary, telesecondary, that is a system for the kids that are in regions very difficult for the access, special education, and indigenous education. In addition, all these books and other material are produced in print, braille, and microtype, or I don't know if it is right microtype or large print, but it's in huge letters. Well, now, as we are going to talk, or as we have to talk about diversity, I have to say that Mexico is a big country with 68 officially recognized native indigenous languages, in addition to Spanish, up to 350 linguistic variants that are derived from these 68 languages by region or ethnic group. At present, free textbooks are made for the majority of indigenous groups, so school books are only produced in 20 indigenous languages that are the Gol, Chichimeco, Cora, Huichol, Maya, Mayo, Mazateco, Mixteco, Náhuatl, Otomí, Teri, Tarahumara, Tarasco, Tepehuano, Tojolabal, Totonaco, Celtal, Tzotzil, Yaqui, and Zapoteco. The Secretary of Public Education, through the General Direction of Indigenous, Intercultural, and Bilingual Education, coordinates the production of the Specialist Editorial Program for the educational care of indigenous, migrants, and Afro-Mexican population, with a commitment to comply with the rights of indigenous children and teens to have an education under criteria of cultural and linguistic relevance to protect and promote the development of their languages, culture, morals, and knowledge. This is why the Mexican state, with the aims of guaranteeing the population to the right to an equitable, inclusive, intercultural, and comprehensive education, undertook to produce and deliver textbooks in the national indigenous languages so that the school-age population can complete all basic education up to secondary school with adequate material that allow them to use their indigenous languages in the classroom, in the school, and in the community, in their community. As a state policy, it is evident that the Mexican government cares about fulfilling its educational function and that cultural diversity is present in its work program. However, from the author's point of view, there are issues to point out that for sure need to be improved. And I think that for the discussion, Alex could extend more about this. First point, Books are made under the work for hire system. That is that the authors are hired by the state for the production. It means that all the economic rights belong to the state since the beginning. The texts are used for an entire generation. There is more or less 10 years on average, but the authors were only paid once, if they are paid. Second, most of them are collective works because they are created by teams of authors where it is not possible to know what their contribution was, and that sometimes causes the authority to assume themselves as the authors and omit the authorial credit, or not to recognize all those who participate in the creation. And this also includes the translators and the illustrators. Third, some of these books are the result of competition or contest where the prize is to be publicated. Authors, always generous, participate in this contest and agree to give up their rights without any remuneration, which is contrary to our law. And they receive as a payment one copy of the book in which they participate. That is the remuneration, a copy of the book. Fourth, because it is work for hire, the authority modifies a lot of times the content without the approval of the authors, which represent a violation of the moral rights indicated by the Mexican law. That is why we believe in IAF that our role as an authors protection organization, we should focus to work in 3 lines of action. The third one, in front to the governments, to make them see the value of the work of the authors, writers, translators, designers, illustrators, as an element to generate economic wealth and cultural heritage. Publishing production represents source and employment for both the public and the private sectors. And if we talk about cultural elements, Mexico is recognized worldwide for its cultural richness, writers who have been translated and read worldwide. The second step or the second sector we have to face is the society. It is vital that we continue to work on campaigns that raise public awareness and avoid practices that are harmful to the interest of the authors, and that, on the contrary, this serves to make readers recognize and respect the rights of the creators. And in the third, in front of the authors themselves, to make them aware of their rights and how to better negotiate them with individual or public bodies. To do this, it is necessary to have a law that guarantees the protection of authors, which is why we must work from legislators and with the industry to banish all practices and put authors at a disadvantage, such as the work for hire, for example, or that old formula for all uses in all medias and formats, known or to be known, that seeks to take away from them, from the beginning, all the economics rights, when we know that not all those rights are used by the publishers. They only have to have those that they really use. Second, authors have the right to have a contract. Many of these books at the beginning are made with no contract. The authors start to work with no contract, without a contract. And then they have to have time to read before the works are publishing, and to have it clauses explained to them. They have to understand what they are signing. So my recommendation always is, don't sign if you don't understand what the contract says. And third, authors must follow the fate of their works. If the works are successful, the authors must also do well, and they must be able to negotiate new contracts. That is, they are not forever. They don't have to sign forever the contracts. Finally, the right to the credit is vital. Authors deserve to be recognized for their works, and that means translators and illustrators, because publishers are obligated, in the case of Mexico, for the law, to include the names in all the publications of the works. And of course, I am able to continue with this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fernanda, for this and for highlighting all of these issues and the dynamics in the case of Mexico that I'm sure many of us are not aware of. It really, I mean, just between your presentation and Katie's presentation, it is astounding to see the role that copyright plays when it comes to facilitating the fair remuneration of the works of authors who are contributing to something as crucial as education, and just the different way in which the reasons for the kinds of books and the range of books that are included can be motivated by economic and political factors. Normally, we wouldn't think of political factors. I wouldn't have considered that before listening to your presentation about the history of Mexico and this need to unify various indigenous groups, and to see unification as uniformity, which are two different things. So I know that Mexico might seem like an extreme case, but I'm sure a lot of us in our respective countries, we can see the different lessons that we can extract from the case of Mexico when it comes to the need to have better policy structures. Like what I'm getting from both presentations is the need to balance things better. So to balance the need to make education more affordable, right? By having books that are more affordable, you want to make the books cheaper because you want people to be able to afford these books. But at the same time, when you do that, the authors end up being sacrificed on that hill, and that's not fair to the authors either. So there's a need for greater balance, and I have to applaud the work of the International Authors Forum when it comes to raising these issues and even lobbying in different governments for more attention to be, given to these issues, to strike that balance, to find a way in which to ensure there's greater grounds for commonality, greater grounds for everybody getting along so that we don't have any political divisions, and for everyone to be able to afford school books without authors being forced to lose out on their inherent rights as the creators of these works. So thank you so much for these presentations and for laying the groundwork for just outlining the context in which we have to, again, all of us in our respective countries have to fight for the barriers to diversity to be removed. All right, I'm going to introduce now a woman, a young woman who has been fighting a valiant fight to push back against all of the challenges that she's been seeing in schools across the United Kingdom when it comes to the need for greater diversity in school curricula. And her name is Lavinia Stennett. She is a writer, a cultural educationalist, and the founder and CEO of the Black Curriculum. She has finished writing her first book, Omitted. Lavinia currently holds awards in the MIPAD Global Top 100 Under 40 in 2024, the Limitless Award 2023, and the Veuve Clicquot Old Woman of the Year 2022, Sunday Times Woman of the Year in 2021, and she has been featured in Vogue and GQ for her activism. The Black Curriculum is a social enterprise founded in 2019, working to teach and support the teaching of Black history all year round. I'm sure that's not just in Black History Month, I'm sure it's all year round, aiming to empower all students with a sense of identity and belonging. And I'm also proud to say that she is of Jamaican heritage. Had to drop that in there. Yes. So thank you, Lavinia, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I wondered, can I share my screen? Am I sharing my screen now or no?
Oh, Katie should be able to help you share your screen.
Okay. Also, the lighting is really bad in here. But good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Katie and Maria, for such fantastic presentations. I really feel like, and also Casey for your introduction and organizing this webinar. I really feel like you set the groundwork for just understanding how practically diversity and equity is actually done in practice, rather than kind of gestures that look good on the surface but don't actually have much meaningful impact. So I'm just going to try and share my screen again. Katie, let me know if that's okay. You
should have the share button now,
okay.
Bottom in your toolbar at the bottom. Do you?
Thank you.
Okay, great.
I believe so. Yeah, it says I'm sharing my screen. So
yeah.
Can you see this presentation?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
Amazing. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Lavinia Stennett, and I'm the founder of an organization called the Black Curriculum, which you can see on your screen. And I'll talk you through in a second our aims and like what we do in practice. But currently, I can't believe it's been 5 years. We just celebrated 5 years. Currently, we are based in the UK. I believe that the mission that we are trying to accomplish with all young people is not limited to Britain. So I am always on the lookout for new partnerships, always on the lookout for ways that we can collaborate to enhance the teaching of Black history all year round. So if that's you, please reach out, let me know. So the Black Curriculum, we are a social enterprise, again, founded in 2019 to address Eurocentricity in local and national curriculum. So in the UK, there is something called the National Curriculum that applies to England. So obviously you know that there are different nations. I think Northern Ireland has its own thing going on, Wales has its own thing going on, Scotland has its own thing going on, and the territory that we are working in, and we're also working with Wales, and I'll go into that later, but the territory that we're really concerned about within this talk is England. And within England, there's a national curriculum that basically is rolled out to schools. So it's like a set criteria from Key Stage 1 to Key Stage 3. after which students who are doing exams basically start to learn from exam board. So they have to follow what the exam specifications are so that they can pass. So the national curriculum really only applies to students who are in Key Stage 1, 2, and 3. And a really important point is that it doesn't apply to all schools. So over time, we have seen the privatization, there we go, privatization of schools in England. And academies have been something that have, has come out of that, with many schools kind of operating as businesses. And as a result, there are many schools that no longer actually follow the national curriculum. So I think the last time the stats that I read, it said that 75% of schools don't actually follow the national curriculum. However, it is still a guidance document that many schools refer to basically, teach their students. So even though it's not enforced in practice, it still exists as, in my opinion, something that showcases the national psyche of how people understand Britain, and also exists as something that teachers can actually use if they're not confident, or if they don't have the time, for example, to kind of innovate topics. There are many limitations with that, which I'll go into in a second. So say that again. Okay, so our programs are for all young people ages 3 to 25. In the Black curriculum, we say 3 to 25 because that's literally where we find young people from nurseries up until university. But really, if we're thinking about a national curriculum and a curriculum that has its roots in colonialism, we work for all people because we've all passed through an education system where our information has been biased. Our information has completely omitted the contributions, economic, social, cultural, of people of African descent to the nation of Britain and across the globe. This is also just to add in another point, there are so many other nationalities and cultures that are also omitted, but the Black curriculum can't do everything, and our focus is for people of African descent right now. So our aim is to equip young people with a sense of identity and belonging, and this is all young people. So we always get the question, do you work with white students? 100%, because it's their story. This is the British story, and if they don't know parts of British history, then this goes for Asian students as well. There is going to be more bias that is replicated in their behaviors, in their understandings, and these very same young people, grow up to be in professions where they have power. So we want to work with all young people, and we do that. So to date, we've worked with over 10,000 teachers across the country. And that also includes Wales. So we've partnered up with the Welsh government to basically help the rolling out of their teacher training to help teachers become more confident in their language and the resources that they use. So yeah, Wales is doing a lot better than England in terms of how advanced they are in this, and I think politically they actually have the backing to make this happen in schools, whereas in England over the past 5 years we've had a government that has been very anti this work by pushing out regulations and policies that basically, for example, say if you have taught white supremacy as a fact in school, you're breaking the law. And for a teacher that is new to the profession or even established, that's very confusing, and it's very intimidating, because how can you teach anything around history without kind of understanding the premise of white supremacy and how that has affected all types of people in the UK. So our aim is to make sure that teachers have not only the materials, but the confidence to basically use this information to support students in their understanding of Britain and the world. So, oh, I have just skipped. Basically, our vision is to empower all students, and our mission is to teach it all year round, so that it's not just in Black History Month, which is next week. So, and I must say that is the busiest time of the year for us, unfortunately, but I think it is a window where people do listen. So I think as an organization, we don't stay away from doing things in Black History Month. We have to use it because it's the only way that many people, hear about Blackness and what we're doing. So in the organization, we work with young champions, and our young champions are young people that are geared towards understanding how they can influence their peers around Black British history. Some of them are, well, all of them are students, either in school or university, so between the ages of 16 and 21. And it's a year-long program. And essentially, the 3 aims that they work towards is to create, which I want to show you in a second what they create, to collectivize, and also to campaign. So when we're thinking about lobbying and, you know, advancing that political work, this is what our young champions are doing. So on the creation, when it comes to books and publications, our young champions basically have produced this lovely zine. So every year at the Black Curriculum, we basically publish zines looking at a variety of topics. So in 2020, we published this one, which is called Notting Hill Carnival, basically looking at everything to do with Notting Hill Carnival. We've, you know, interviewed some of the organisers, of course, credited the founders of Notting Hill Carnival, Rianne and Claudia Jones, and just looked at, you know, just the different aspects of it, even down to Grenfell, which is, you know, was a tragedy that happened in 2016 that many people are still seeking justice for. And then this one, we haven't, sorry, I've just omitted another one, I don't have it with me, but we did hair stories, which looked at like all types of hair in African, Caribbean, and African cultures across the world. And then this one is based on food. So we have recipes in here from Haiti to Suriname to Brazil, looking at yam festivals, for example. There's interviews with chefs, and it's just a really great, profound piece of work that basically allows young people to take ownership of the narrative that they actually want to hear and see. And I think that is the key really at the Black Curriculum, that we, and I'll get into our books in a second, but we have seen that young people in schools still, even though the teachers are being trained, there is still a gap in that knowledge. So what young people may see at home or what they hear from their friends or see on TikTok is very different from what the actual national curriculum and what they're learning in schools is. You know, it's just very different, and it's very slow to catch up towards it, unless the teacher is like, well, has loads of time or is well resourced, or actually is in proximity to the culture, so that there is a clearer understanding of what these students actually need. And when I'm thinking about a sense of identity and belonging, it works for us to put the tools in the hands of young people to create these narratives, obviously with the guidance of professionals as well. So if I take out this one, the thing will fall, but I'm going to just show you. So we have 3 books that we published in 2022. One is called Places, and it was written and it was all illustrated by young people that have worked with us. So the author of this one is called Melody, and she is still working with us at the Black Curriculum. She left to become a teacher and she's come back. This one is called Legacies and was authored by Lanya. And inside of them, we have forwards written by Lewis Hamilton and Darkest Beasts, and also rugby player Maro Itoje. So basically the work that we do is premised around how can we connect people within like different industries to see the value of Black British history, whilst also making sure that this is in alignment with the national curriculum. Because one of the things that we've heard time and time again is that, oh, you know, these books, they're very colourful and pretty, but they can't be taught in classrooms. And our question is why? So sometimes, even though there are missing narratives, teachers find it very difficult to actually embed this work because it doesn't align with what they actually have to teach the students. So we've made it easier for them by basically saying, look, we're going to align all the topics in here. So for example, Places, it's looking at specific places in Britain that have, you know, important historical sites, from Scotland to Wales, and you know, this can connect with geography, it can connect with PSHE, and some of the other topics that are taught, of course, history, English. So it's just making sure that the content in here can actually be weaved in with the outcomes and the aims of what those students in those year groups need to, you know, be able to achieve. So yeah, we're just basically trying to make sure there's no excuses, or not just excuses, but there's no doubt when it comes to making sure this content is manageable for teachers, so they're not actually adding in, because that is another comment we get. If you're embedding Black history, do we have to, you know, add new narratives? No, not necessarily. It's about contextualizing the narratives that you're already using to actually think about, well, what are we not including in this information. So yeah, our work is very practical based at the Black Curriculum. Again, we're supporting young writers and young people to basically, yeah, just be creative, research, building skills in research, writing, even illustration. And we want to continue doing this because I think, to Maria's point and Katie's point, there is a wider industry out there that is very white, and we have seen, and I really just want to speak about this for even just 2 minutes. It's been very difficult for us as an organization to, I would say, like, work with the understanding that this work is still in the hands of a white industry. So, for example, our books, as much as these are our books, at the same time, DK, the publishers that we worked with, actually own these books 70 years post our death. Like, that's what's like within the clause. So there is like certain conflicts, but the benefits of working with organizations and publications like DK is that you can get these books into places. I could go down to Waterstones right now, or a festival, and those books would be there. So I think, you know, in terms of like making sure that it's widespread and accessible, it's lovely to work with DK. But in terms of like the piece on ownership, and also if we wanted to translate these into audiobooks, which we have, we still have to go through them. So we don't really have that control as an organization. Hence why I think publications like these, that the young people are able to produce and like create, work really well in terms of that ownership. So yeah, we want to do more. We want to do more in partnership, even in different languages. I think this is so important if we could work with young people across the world to look at what Black history in their country looks like and what narratives are not being told, and produce things in, you know, accessible ways. I would be so open towards that. I wrote down notes on this really mini card because I don't have a piece of paper. But yes, I think that's it for today. But I just wanted to just, I guess, contextualize the work that we do around making sure there's not new narratives, but we're retelling stories that basically have been omitted in the past in our own way, and empowering young people to do so. So yeah, I hope to see this work continue. I did actually have other slides to show. So I'll just take you through. So this was the process of them building the zine that you just saw, A Taste of Home, which is here. And we also had support from an organization called Papier. Again, this is one of our books, and the zine itself as well. And this is some of the insides of the publication. And yes, if you want to check out more about our work, we also have audio content, which is important as well. We have a lot of parents of autistic children that say, like, you know, these books are great, but visually and also audibly, they want to continue to engage. So we have podcasts that we've worked in collaboration with partners like Spotify to produce. So this one, A Letter Home, is about Windrush. And we also have one called The Sounds of Black Britain, which basically looks at musical genres in the UK. I think there's about 10 of them, and it's visual and audio, so you can go on YouTube and Spotify to see and listen to it. And then, of course, our website has many other resources. So that's it. I'm going to wrap up. Thank you for listening.
Wow, thank you so much just for your work. You're very, I mean, just excellent work. Thank you so much, Lavinia. And I'm really glad that you highlighted some things that I hadn't thought about before in terms of diversity. So just the fact that you ended on talking about the need for books to be able to appease the autistic students, like even disability, that's another area of diversity that sometimes you don't think about. I know that Fernanda had mentioned that, you know, some books being in Braille as well. So just thank you both for just bringing up that element of it. And I know that Katie started off with the, you know, the more economic factors, right? That inhibit diversity because of this blanket license fee and the fact that authors are not being paid for individual books that they have written that are being sold. And then Fernanda mentioned the political aspects of it, with this fear of this use of education as a means to push back against political fracturing in light of its history. But then you mentioned some legal factors that I had never thought of before. The fact that there's some topics or books that can literally be seen as against the law for being taught. So, you have the political, the economic, the legal, there are lots of elements to this thing that, I personally would not have thought of before, if you had not mentioned it. So just thank you so much for that. And
Also, say
yeah.
one thing, Stacey.
Yes, please go ahead.
We're in New York, so we are. So there's some young champions in other rooms right now, but we're connected with other schools. And in talks with some of the schools, we literally just realized there are certain states that have banned resources. So what we're doing is I just want us to remember that this is so much wider and so important that we are blessed in the UK to not have reached that level right now. But there are certain states that were literally just banned Black history. So you can't even access that material. And I think that's the beast that we're pushing back against, and we're all working within. So just to bring it back to that, I think was really important.
Yeah, wow. There are just some things you take for granted because you're in 2024 and you think some chapters have closed already. Yeah, but they're still there in a lot of ways, just in more seemingly subtle ways. So thank you for that, for highlighting that. And then I also want to bring up the fact that, so many of your writers at the Black curriculum are young. So you have that diverse in terms of age as well. And I'm just going to put in just a personal experience I had. Jaiku Poetry, we collaborated with a leading local storytelling foundation out here to put on an inaugural Children's Literature Fest in Jamaica. We, under the auspices and supports of UNESCO. And the theme is, using literature geared at children and youth as a means of promoting peace. So it was commemorating International Day of Peace. And when we were talking with the students about what they wanted to see, so many of them kept on saying they wanted to see something that they could relate. Because in Jamaica, we tend to be net consumers and not net producers when it comes to the digital space. And so a lot of our students, they want to hear Jamaican voices. They want to hear about Jamaican women. And I mean, it's not race specific. And I love that even though the name of your organization is a Black curriculum, you're not race specific when it comes to who you work with. But, there's still there needs a representation that each race will feel the impact of. And honestly, just even when I walked into the room, several of the girls were amazed by my hair. And because they just said that when they're looking for things online, they're not seeing a lot of this. They're not seeing authors who look like me or who have my background, and they'd want to hear from authors who they can relate to as they navigate the school space that is outside of the classroom and the non-academic elements of the school system. So I am deeply grateful for your work, and all of us salute you. I know you say you're looking for linkages. I don't know how we can do that, but I feel like there are lots of ways in which we can do that. I'm sure, so thank you so much. I'm sorry?
No, I said 100%. I'm even thinking just books now. I'm just thinking books, but yeah.
Yes, and I am adding back all of our speakers. I don't know if anybody has any questions. Oh, I'm seeing Rosina is saying she's enjoying to be part of this and she'd like to get the opportunity to speak from. Okay, Rosina, yes, if you're here.
Yes.
I'm just
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah,
You
man.
can
Hi,
hear
Rosina.
me?
Yes,
You
I
can
can
hear
hear you. Yes, ma'am.
Is this a moment ideal for mentioning my experience? Yeah, I can share a little bit. I can wait. You can do it later. I don't know exactly how your timetable works. Yeah, is it okay
You can.
now?
It's okay now. The presentations are finished, and we love the audience participation.
Well, I'm very, very moved and touched, and I congratulate you, Casey, for this initiative. And we take it further here in Jamaica, because here it is such an important topic here, yeah. Because I'm Rosina Moda. I'm born in Austria, in the country, in the hills. Grew up with folk music, and I made it to be an early childhood music educator, and then through the early childhood, I started, although I played the organ and the cello, but I started playing the recorder, and I became a specialist in Baroque music. But when I got my university post in Austria, in the University of Mozarteum, very, very wonderful school, and my parents thought I made it, I felt retired. And I always had a feeling I wanted to go out to the world without being a doctor or a nurse, yeah? So I knew Monty Alexander, the jazz pianist. He said, go to Jamaica, they need you. And so I came here to play one concert. I landed in Bob Marley's birthday next year, 40 years ago. I came here to play one concert. And I met, yes, my now husband, the violinist and composer Peter Ashbourne, in the concert. Then I went back home and I finished teaching my semester. And in summer holiday, I made up my mind, I go to Jamaica. And I will see what's going on. And I was so like, call it unknowledgeable. I come from Austria. I had my whole youth that working on the work out our Hitler history. Yeah. So for me, racism and so was totally not in my frame. And the whole slavery thing, it was like I came here new to this, yes. And I came here actually as a musician and educator. And when I came, I started I started teaching at the School of Music, where I'm still there, the Edna Manley College, and I did some community volunteer things. And I realized there was no book to teach the recorder with any Jamaican songs. No, there was this book called what? The Recorder Tutor from England, written in 1953, published, and it's still used in Jamaica. And it's still promoted by the Ministry of Education. And it's still worshipped. The most boring, uneducational value. I mean, it's unbelievable. When you play the first page, you say, oh, and you want to never touch the instrument. But so I sat down on the feet of Dr. Olive Lewin on Marjorie Wiley, our folk researchers, and I came here, only knew Linstead Market, the one song. And Mary Had a Little Lamb, another song in English. I knew nothing. So I started researching songs and working with children and with musicians. And I sat down 3-4 years and wrote this book in my hand for the Tutu book, yeah, Caribbean recorder book, yeah. And it has lots of Jamaican songs. And my husband, he wrote my arrangements so they don't say, oh, this foreign girl, she's damaging our music with her foreign ideas. So he made the arrangements to be sounding Jamaican. I did everything possible. And do you know that now the Ministry of Education has not acknowledged my book? Or no? So I got so angry that or disappointed I gave up, but I think I'm going back to it. Maybe Casey, you and me go to to our permanent secretary or chief education officer, because they say
absolutely, I'm right there with you, and we can, I mean, if Lavinia wants to make a stop home and visit and join us, I think that'd be great.
Let's go and have a good, this is maybe a good, everything in the right time. Because they said the answer was they can't accept it because they don't use any handwritten. It's perfectly nicely written. They don't use any handwritten manuscript in Jamaica. They can't endorse this. So they go for the looks. It's like a fashion contest, right? The look, not the content, yeah? Oh my God. But thank God I have been teaching so many music teachers going out teaching in the country. And a lot of them use the book. So the book is used widely in Jamaica. But one prominent high school in Kingston, the music teacher is so hung up on her English book, the boring one, yeah, that she put both books on the book list. The bad one on my Jamaican one. It's so funny. So the parents have to buy 2 books because she believes, I don't know. Anyway, so, but it is not only in music. Listen, there is something. Slavery and colonialism left a terrible thing, a mental hang-up here. And I say it now as a foreigner, just watching it, yeah? There is still a glorification of the books coming from foreign, yeah? Yeah, from England, especially the English. On the ones who teach in England, you struggle with it. Maybe from before. The British, I hear from my husband when he went to high school, the British brought here this thing from rote learning. You just do as told, ask question, you just learn it, yeah? And so, for example, in high schools, lots of students are bothered with this British music theory book from the ABRSM, from the Royal School of Music, whatever. And they have to learn in grade 7 when they enter high school, music theory. Instead of learn the recorder where I teach everything in it, what is a note and what is another value. But no, they have to learn music theory, like they will hate music for the rest of their lives. But it's from England and it's here on the examiners come here and you get a grade. So if somebody is doing swimming, dancing or cricket, they have to learn theory without an instrument. There's so much to be done in music education in Jamaica. And sure, in many other areas. You know, the foreign books, they're still glorified, the foreign system. So I have watched it and we're moving like snails to get it better, to be really, not only for me, but in many other areas. So we have a lot to do, Casey.
Yes, and I'm so glad you joined. I deeply appreciate your passion, and I fully agree in a lot of areas. I mean, as a poet, I see that as well, you know, because and it's so ironic that Jamaica is known globally for music. We're known globally for music, but then what the basis of the foundation of our music education in Jamaica is still British, and not even British, like 1950s British.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The book is
it's very ironic. So, and again, as a poet as well, I see it. I mean, Jamaica, we also have a rich cultural history. You know, we have Louise Bennett, one of our Louise Bennett symposium is coming up next month. But even then, when you ask students in Jamaica about poetry, a lot of times they'll think of Shakespeare. Not even some of our own poets who, again, have a global
Mervyn Morris.
impact.
They don't
even know Mervyn Morris. And so it's just a travesty. So I just really thank you for highlighting the need for that cultural shift. Yes, Fernanda.
Just
I wanted to say one more thing, Fernanda first.
Thank you. Thank you, Rosina. Very, very interested what you say. But I want to say the point is not to have options from outside of our country, is to have them, but that we have to encourage our own authors also, no? Not just the ones that come from out, no? Because it's the same case in Mexico. We obviously we have another language, so all the influence of the Spanish, no, or the Spain books or music or I don't know, another kind of works, video, movie, no. So it's we are not against the diversity of the world.
Yeah.
We are just fighting to have the same opportunities for our authors, the local authors, the native authors, no? That they can show their works at the same relevance that the ones that come from out, no? We are all agree in that, right?
I wanted to add one more thing, if it's possible. Yes, I wanted to add one more thing. I also realized when I came here that because Casey, you mentioned we are so known in Jamaica for music, and the biggest income earners, you know, is music through the reggae music world tours and stuff. But then I started to go look for information on the composers of Jamaica. Yeah, and I realized there's something to do with the slavery and colonialism. People in Jamaica, not only in music, also in architecture and in poetry, sure, you know, there are no researches done from the history. So when I came to Jamaica, nobody was called a composer. They were good arrangers. Yeah, your husband, a good arranger. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, everybody is called a composer, because I started then researching Jamaican composers, found one from 1743. The first Jamaican composer was born in 1743. That was good for me as a Baroque musician. And he wrote the first oratorio from the entire Western Hemisphere. but it's not being taught yet at schools. It's not music history. Even in my school of music, maybe they mention Feldstedt, but not the other 30, 40 composers we have on our website, Jamaican composers like Eleanor Berger, who is in England, or Shirley Thompson, or Sharon Carcroft in Australia. So we have a website, and I think until we put out a book on the influential Jamaican composers, the tertiary institutions and the high schools are teaching music history without the Jamaican history of music. So we
Okay,
have a lot of things.
So I just want to jump in, Lavinia. I know you said that you have to go. So before you leave, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and congratulations again on the 5th anniversary of the Black curriculum. And I'm sure that we are going to, we're going to be talking soon.
Thank you so much, Casey, Fernanda, Maria, Katie, and Marina. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Yes, sorry. Yes, so again, just thank you all so much for your comments, and I'm seeing some more comments in the chat. Just to bring that up, Feline, thank you so much for what you said. Local books are essential for decolonizing education and knowledge. I can't agree with you more on that. It really is. And again, thank you, Dawn, for surprise. We're going to be having other webinars as well. I think we can safely announce the next webinar from now, right? That is going to be in October. And we're going to be again inviting the Latin American chapter. We will have translators, I think this time, that's for sure. To discuss how to negotiate contracts as a writer, as a poet, and we're going to be bringing back Christoph Jenkins, who is the founder and CEO of The Poet Life. He is a professional poet. Like, that's what he does. He has made a robust career out of it, and he has a lot of partners around the world, and he's a passion and a hobby. So yeah, so just saying all of that, as we're starting to wind down. Yes. All right. Yeah. Yes. Okay. And Rosina, I cannot thank you enough for tuning in and for your passion. And again, we're going to be talking. I don't know what it's going to be like, but I know that there's going to be something coming up. I'm also seeing Grizel's point. What UNESCO, what is IA in education? Is that what? Grizel, would you mind expounding on that point a bit? And then we'll probably just wrap up and close. Grizel? Grizel, ¿puedes explicar más lo que dijiste sobre UNESCO y la educación? Bueno, I hear from Grizel. All right, but yes. Okay, so, Grizel.
Oh, hello.
Hello, Grizel.
Well, can I speak Spanish? It's better than my English, but
That's
I
fine.
can?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, there are 2 months ago, we went to a meeting of UNESCO, and they are seeing, están viendo cómo integrar o cómo se está integrando la inteligencia artificial en la educación. Y me parece también un punto muy relevante porque hay opiniones muy encontradas, porque los puntos que dicen que están en contra dicen que está perfecto que pueda ser digital la educación a través del uso digital de la inteligencia artificial, pero los obstáculos, como siempre en LATAM, es que en la región de LATAM es que la educación entonces no llegaría a todos los alumnos. Entonces, lo comenté porque también también hay que contemplar ese punto que está ahorita actual en el mundo, realmente en todo el mundo, de cómo va a permear también la inteligencia artificial en la educación. Me pareció muy interesante lo que dijo la maestra acerca de los libros, porque yo vengo de una educación de cuando realmente teníamos acceso a las artes, como era la poesía, la literatura, la música, la danza, y uno podía escoger más o menos el taller que a uno le gustaba. Como dijo Fernanda, si algunos tienen a Shakespeare, yo lo tengo porque me gusta, pero también nosotros recibimos clases de literatura española. Por ejemplo, el libro del Quijote, que
Ujú.
nos lo ponían a leer, pero a nosotros a lo mejor no nos gustaba o no nos identificábamos con él, aunque sea una de las obras maestras de México. Ahora bien, con el tiempo va uno creciendo y va uno tomando, por ejemplo, reconociendo nuestros autores primero, los mexicanos, y después los ancestrales, porque para mí fue todo un descubrimiento ver, por ejemplo, que Nezahualcóyotl o nuestros antepasados ya escribían poesía. ¿Y quién hizo factible eso? Bueno, pues un historiador que se puso a estudiar, que se puso a traducir y ahora tener esos poemas traducidos al español, por lo menos, te da otra dimensión de cuáles son realmente tus raíces. Y yo creo que eso es lo ideal, ir como a lo mejor no creo que sea una utopía, pero sí revisar con la gente que tiene el poder de poder hacer este tipo de programas, pues también a la par que estamos conociendo la literatura internacional, porque también eso nos va creando nuestra cultura, pero también ir conociendo lo que tenemos propio de cada país. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Priscila, y estoy completamente de acuerdo, especialmente con la importancia del acceso, porque la inteligencia artificial va a desemplear un papel aún más grande en el rol de educación, pero sin el contexto, sin la tecnología para accesar o utilizar esta inteligencia, no es útil para los estudiantes. Y también estoy de acuerdo con tu punto sobre la representación local, de la cultura local, de los autores locales, para, para ser relevante la pedagogía a los estudiantes, para respetar y entender más su propia identidad y el contexto cultural de la educación local. Es un principio que cada país necesita en su sistema de educación.
Ujú. Así es.
Fernanda. Y gracias por tu paciencia con mi español.
Thank to you, because my English is not so good, but I try. I will try the
Quite
next.
bad. I'll work on my Spanish as well.
No?
Yes, Fernanda.
Okay.
She's Grisel.
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 So thank you very much for your invitation. It was great to be here with you, and I hope we can continue discussing this kind of themes. Maybe we can make the same to bring this issue to the Latin American chapter, because it's important to talk about the diversity, but with some, as Rosina says, with some limits, no? Or with some objectives, not to have
Yes.
this diversity. Thank you very much. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Casey. Thank you for all that listening.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I don't know if you guys can put on your camera so we can try to get a shot, a screenshot. How do we do this? We can try to see if we can just get a screenshot of those of us who are here. If you can turn on your cameras, please do. I know that Fernanda normally does this at the end of our meetings. All right, so yes, all right. Whoever can turn on the cameras, you have 3, 2, and at least smile if you can't. If you can anyway. All right, 3, 2, 1. Everybody say patata. Here you go. All right, I think I got it. Okay, all right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, everybody. And look out for the next one coming up. I believe it should be October 24th. We're going to confirm that date, but save the date for October 24th. All right, and take care, everyone. Ten un buen día. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Yes, she does. Trying to.
All right, Katie, I guess we can talk off air.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, take care.
Okay, you too. Bye.